The candle on the kitchen table hadn't even finished dripping its first line of wax when she dropped the bomb. I'm leaving. For someone else. Then, without taking a breath, if you try to stop me, I'll call the police and tell them you hit me. That was it. That was the whole symphony, played in two short, heartless lines. She didn't yell. She didn't cry. She wasn't even angry. She said it like someone ordering coffee, like a script she'd rehearsed. Like this was just another Wednesday night. And I flinched, like she actually had hit me. Not physically, no, but something inside cracked like a dropped glass. I didn't stand up. I didn't chase her. I didn't scream, what? I just sat there, blinking, while the lasagna I'd cooked went cold. Yeah, lasagna. Homemade. Layered with ricotta and everything. She didn't take any. She walked out the door in heels I paid for, carrying the same overnight bag she once used for our anniversary trips. The same bag that now, apparently, held everything she needed to build a new life with a new man. She didn't look back. Not once. But here's where things take a strange turn. See, just before she opened the door, just before she stepped out and into his car, I saw her check her phone. And for a split second, her face changed. It wasn't fear. It wasn't guilt. It was confusion. Maybe even panic. But it passed fast, like a cloud over the sun. And she was gone. I didn't know then, but that moment, that text she read, was karma slipping its hand around her perfect little world. Because she thought she was running towards something better. She had no idea what she'd just run into. And neither did I. But by the time the clock struck midnight, everything would start unraveling. Not because I fought back. Because I didn't. I didn't move from that chair for hours. I just sat there in the flickering candlelight, replaying her words in my head like some sad, broken record. I'm leaving. For someone else. If you try to stop me, I'll call the police. That last part hit hardest. Not because I thought she'd actually do it, but because of how easily she said it. Like she'd been waiting for the moment to weaponize my kindness. Like she'd been rehearsing this scenario in her mind while I was folding our laundry or making her breakfast. It wasn't rage in her voice. It was detachment. And somehow, that was worse. But that text she glanced at right before walking out the door, the one that made her eyebrow twitch for half a second, that stayed with me. I didn't know who it was from, but it rattled her, even if she didn't let it show. Something told me the man she was going to wasn't as solid as she thought. And even though I wasn't ready to face the collapse of my marriage, I couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just stepped into something far uglier than she'd planned. At 1:37 a.m., I heard the first knock. Not from her. No, she was long gone. But from reality, slamming its cold hand on my door. It was a delivery driver. Wrong address. He handed me a small box addressed to someone named Lenny Marwood. I didn't know a Lenny, but the address was mine. And when I opened it, because what else was I supposed to do in that moment? Inside was a man's leather wallet, a watch, and a note. The note said, in clumsy handwriting, "You left these at her place. She's mine now. Stay gone." At first, I thought it was some twisted coincidence. A mistake. But then I saw the name on the ID inside the wallet. Tobias Crane. Tobias. That was the name Isla gave me, the man she was going to see. Only now, apparently, Tobias had a girlfriend, or possibly even a wife, and she had just made her first move. The package wasn't meant for me. It was meant for him, and it had been sent to my address. That's when something strange kicked in. I should have felt vindicated, right? Or at least relieved that the guy she left me for wasn't some perfect upgrade. But instead, I felt something colder, dread. Because if this guy was cheating on someone else with my wife, then Isla had just stepped into a drama way messier than ours ever was. And knowing her, she had no clue. But I still wasn't ready to interfere. I figured she made her bed, she could lie in it, preferably with one eye open. I went to bed alone, heart pounding, the wallet and note sitting on my nightstand like a threat that wasn't even meant for me. The next morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls from Isla. Not texts, calls. The same woman who threatened to call the cops on me for simply existing in her way was now blowing up my phone at 6:42 a.m. I didn't answer. I didn't even listen to the voicemails at first. I just watched them pile up, one after another, until she finally sent a text. "Mel, please pick up. Something's wrong. I need to talk to you. Please. It's serious." Suddenly, that confused look she gave right before walking out the door made perfect sense. She'd gotten a warning. A silent, cryptic tap on the shoulder. And she ignored it. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the part of me that still believed in the woman I married, but I finally listened to the last voicemail. She was crying. Not loud, ugly crying. It was worse. She sounded scared. Mel, please. I know I messed up. I know what I said. But something's going on with Tobias. I think he's not who he said he was. I saw something. I don't know what to do. Just please, call me back. Please. I didn't. Not yet. I sat there in silence, phone in hand, my chest heavy. I wasn't ready to be her safety net. Not after the way she'd cut me loose. Not after the way she looked me in the eye and tried to erase me with one sentence. But part of me, some small, fragile part, needed to know what she'd walked into. Not for her sake. For mine. Because maybe karma was doing its thing. And maybe I wasn't supposed to interfere. But if Tobias was dangerous, if Isla had put herself in real trouble, I needed to know. Even if it shattered what was left of me. I didn't sleep. Not really. I just laid there on the edge of the bed that still smelled faintly like her shampoo, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. My wife left me for another man, threatened to falsely accuse me if I so much as blinked the wrong way. And now, suddenly, she was begging me to answer the phone because the guy she left me for turned out to be someone she wasn't prepared for. Part of me wanted to ignore it all, block the number, vanish, let her figure out the mess on her own. But I couldn't. Not because I still loved her, not in that moment. That version of love had been shattered. But because something in her voice felt different. Not manipulative, not performative, just raw. Around 9:10 a.m., I finally texted her. Just one word. Where? She answered instantly. Red Pine Motel, room 109. Please, Melvin, hurry. Red Pine. That place was out on the edge of town, right off the highway, the kind of grimy roadside spot people used when they didn't want to be found. I hadn't been there in years, not since I locked my keys in my car during a snowstorm and ended up needing shelter for a night. It was cheap, quiet, and mostly forgotten. And now, apparently, my wife was holed up there with panic in her throat and a man she didn't understand. I didn't rush. I took a long, steady shower, put on clean clothes, ate a granola bar while staring at the wall. I guess I needed to remind myself I was still a person, that this wasn't a movie where the broken husband dashes out to rescue the woman who betrayed him. I needed to keep my head straight. By 10:30, I pulled into the motel parking lot. There were only 4 cars, one of which was a black Cadillac with tinted windows that screamed midlife crisis. I instantly knew it was his. The Tobias Special. I stood in front of room 109 and paused. I could hear voices inside, low, fast, tense. One of them was Isla. The other wasn't a man. It was a woman, and she wasn't crying. She was yelling. I knocked. Hard. Everything went silent inside for a full 5 seconds. Then the door cracked open, just enough for Isla's face to appear. She looked destroyed. No makeup. Hair tangled. Eyes red. Mel? She whispered, and for a second I thought she was about to collapse into my arms. But instead, she just stepped aside. Inside the room stood another woman, mid-30s, in scrubs, hair tied up like she'd come straight from work. She glared at Isla, then at me. You must be the husband, she snapped. I nodded slowly. And you are? She scoffed. Tobias's fiancé. Or at least I was. Until last night. That's when she tossed a tablet onto the bed. It was open to a series of emails. The subject line on the top one read, "Don't worry, he's too weak to stop us." It was from Isla to Tobias, dated 2 weeks ago. And below it were dozens of messages between them. Plans, photos, trash-talking me, even bank routing numbers. They were planning to clean me out. But it didn't stop there. The fiancée, her name was Emery, had found out about them by accident. A shared cloud account, a sync device, typical affair slip-ups. She'd read everything. And instead of confronting Tobias, she'd tracked Isla down first. Tobias is gone, she said. Vanished. Left his phone behind. Emptied his part of our joint account. Deleted his social media. No one's seen him since 3 a.m. I turned to Isla. You said something was wrong. What exactly happened? She looked down, shaking. He got a call while I was in the bathroom. I heard him shouting. When I came out, he was packing. Fast. Sweating. Said something about a man named Lamar finding out. I asked who that was. He shoved me, said I didn't need to know. Then he left. I haven't seen him since. The room went quiet again. Emery crossed her arms. You need to get a lawyer. And check your accounts. Today. And that was the moment I stopped feeling like the victim of a betrayal and started realizing I was in the middle of something much bigger. My wife didn't just cheat. She got herself tangled up with a con artist. And now, I was in the blast zone. I didn't say a word for nearly a minute. I just stood there in that cheap motel room, breathing through my nose like I'd just been sucker punched in the chest. Isla was slouched in the corner like a collapsed paper bag, makeup smeared from hours of crying or panic or both. Emery, the not-so-ex-fiancé, was pacing back and forth like a woman with a vendetta just waiting to be aimed. And me? I was the idiot husband who brought granola to a financial execution. I want to see those emails again, I finally said, pointing to the tablet. Emery didn't hesitate. She handed it to me with the fury of someone who'd already gone through denial and landed squarely in revenge mode. I sat down on the edge of the bed and scrolled, and scrolled, and scrolled. There were messages dating back months. They started subtle. Tobias flirting, Isla flirting back. But then things escalated quickly. Conversations about me being too soft to notice, plans to manipulate my signature on certain documents, comments about how easy it would be to make Melvin look unstable if I ever got suspicious. There were even messages about draining the joint account, transferring it through crypto platforms so the idiot can't trace it. That part stung the most. They weren't just planning to leave me. They wanted to ruin me. But here's where things got even weirder. Because 2 weeks ago, the tone of Tobias's emails changed. They went from confident and smug to paranoid. He started mentioning someone named Lamar. He wrote things like, "Lamar's back in town. And if he finds out, it's over. And even, I need to ghost both of you. It's not safe anymore." I showed Emery one of those messages. "Do you know who this Lamar is?" She nodded, jaw tight. "Yeah, Lamar's his old business partner. Well, was. They ran this real estate scam together a few years ago. Lamar took the fall. Tobias walked away clean, vanished. Changed states, changed his name. Started dating me 6 months later like nothing happened. But Lamar's out of prison now. And if Tobias started getting scared, he was probably being followed," I said, finishing her sentence. "That explains the Cadillac, the burner phones, the erratic behavior Isla was too smitten to notice. Tobias wasn't just cheating. He was running. And somehow, Isla had been sucked into his getaway plan like a clueless extra in a crime thriller. But there was something else. A photo, attached to the last email Tobias sent to Isla, timestamped just a few hours before he disappeared. It was grainy, clearly taken through a windshield, but it showed a dark figure standing on a street corner. The subject was tall, muscular, hoodie pulled up, head tilted slightly toward the camera. It looked like a warning, like Tobias had seen someone and knew it was only a matter of time. Under the photo, Tobias had written, "If I vanish, it's because of him. You should vanish too." I looked up at Isla. Her eyes were wide, glassy. She looked like someone who'd just realized they walked straight into a trap and had pulled me along for the ride. "Do you have anything left in your name?" I asked. "Any accounts he didn't touch?" She shook her head slowly. "He convinced me to close my savings account last month. Said we'd combine resources to start over. I even gave him access to the card you gave me." "Of course she did." Emery spoke next. "I already filed a report, but it won't go anywhere unless we find him. And he's long gone, unless Lamar got to him first." I stood up and handed the tablet back. "I need to check my accounts. Now." I called my bank on speaker, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear the music on hold. When I finally got through, the rep confirmed it. 2 wire transfers over the last 48 hours. Nearly $28,000 gone. Most of our savings. Both processed to a business name I'd never heard of, BLM Holdings. Registered in Nevada. "That's Tobias," Emery whispered. "He used that shell company before." The bank rep flagged the account. Promised an investigation. Said nothing they haven't said to 1,000 other people who got cleaned out by people they trusted. When I hung up, the silence in the room felt heavier than before. I turned to Isla. "You were ready to leave me. You were ready to accuse me of abuse if I so much as reacted. But look at you now. You're just another line in his con. A disposable pawn." Tears welled in her eyes again. "Melvin, I didn't know." I leaned in closer. "And I didn't deserve any of this." Emery grabbed her bag. "I don't know about you," she said, pointing at Isla. "But I'm not waiting around to see if Lamar finds us too." She left, and for the first time in 12 hours, I looked at Isla and realized I didn't hate her. I pitied her. Because what she gave up, the life we had, the home, the stability, the safety, she gave it all away for a fantasy built by a ghost. And now, the ghost was gone. The motel room felt darker after Emery left, even though the sun had climbed higher. Isla and I just sat there, not speaking, surrounded by thin walls, cigarette-stained curtains, and the heavy weight of realization. She looked wrecked, completely unrecognizable from the version of her that had stood in our kitchen just the night before, announcing her betrayal like a queen issuing a royal decree. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I didn't feel satisfaction either. What I felt was something far worse: entanglement. I wanted out of this mess, but now that Tobias had touched our accounts, now that I had proof of attempted fraud, I was stuck in it whether I wanted to be or not. "Did you ever meet Lamar?" I asked. She shook her head slowly. "I didn't even know he existed until last night. Tobias told me he used to work in finance, that he was burned out from Wall Street, said he wanted a quieter life. He told me I deserved something more exciting than you. He made it sound like an adventure." I clenched my jaw. "So the guy who told you I was too boring to love also told you to lie about abuse if I tried to stop you?" She flinched. "That part wasn't supposed to be real. I wasn't going to do it. He just said, if I needed leverage. You rehearsed destroying my life." Silence. I stood up. I couldn't breathe in that room. I needed air. I opened the door, letting the cold bite my face. And that's when I saw it. A white envelope, slipped under the windshield wiper of my car. No return address, just my name, written in black marker across the front. I opened it slowly, heart thudding. Inside was a single piece of paper and a photo. The paper read, "He did it to others, but you were the only one smart enough to watch." The photo was of Tobias, except not recent. This was older, much older. He looked different, clean-shaven, different haircut, but it was him. And he was standing in front of a courthouse, in cuffs. I showed the photo to Isla. She gasped. "Where did you get that?" "I didn't. Someone left it for me. Someone's been watching us." We both looked around. The parking lot was quiet. The highway buzzed faintly in the distance. Someone knew what was going on. Someone knew Tobias's past. And someone wanted me to know that this wasn't just about Isla's betrayal or stolen money. This was about something deeper, something Tobias had done before, maybe even worse than what he'd done to us. And suddenly, I realized something terrifying. If this person knew my name, knew where I was parked, knew Tobias's history, then Tobias wasn't the only one being hunted. I gripped the photo tighter than I meant to, crumpling the edge as I stared at the man I barely recognized, but somehow had led into my life, into my marriage, through my wife. Tobias, or whatever his real name was. The cuffs around his wrists in that photo weren't for tax fraud or petty scams. You could see it in the face of the officer behind him. Tight jaw, no amusement, no routine. That wasn't a white-collar arrest. That was serious. Isla stood behind me, still barefoot on the cold pavement outside the motel room. I turned to her, and for a second, she looked like she wanted to pretend none of this was real, like she could still rewind time and erase what she'd done. But the look in my eyes must have told her that bridge was ash. "Why would someone be following me?" I asked, my voice lower than I expected. Isla shook her head, biting her thumbnail like a nervous teenager. "I don't know, Melvin. I swear I don't. I didn't know about any of this until he ran last night. He was talking to people I'd never seen before, getting all these texts in code. At one point, he started packing a burner phone into his sock. That's when I got scared." I exhaled slowly. "You were scared after you threatened to falsely accuse me of abuse?" That shut her up. Back inside the car, I sat with the envelope on my lap, replaying everything from the last 48 hours. The fake name, the money transfers, the plan to leave me broke and humiliated, the mysterious woman, Emery, who probably saved my life without realizing it. And now, this, proof that Tobias had been in serious legal trouble before, and someone wanted me to see it. I pulled out my laptop, connected to my hotspot, and started digging. Searching his name, his real name, according to the arrest photo, revealed sealed court records, a few deleted news articles, and one strange blog post that had been archived. The headline made my stomach flip. From house flipper to suspect, the vanishing of 3 investors linked to Gregory Kane. Gregory Kane. That was Tobias's real name. The article laid it out like a slow-burn horror story. He had built a reputation flipping properties, convincing everyday people to invest through shady cashback schemes. One by one, those investors started disappearing. One was found months later, dead, ruled as suicide. Another never showed up to her sister's wedding and was presumed missing. The third, still unsolved. Cain vanished before the trial. The charges didn't stick because no bodies meant no case. He left town and was assumed to have fled overseas. Except he hadn't. He'd stayed, changed his name, slid into Emery's life. Then mine. Through Isla. My hands were sweating, my throat dry. I looked at Isla. You didn't just cheat on me. You climbed into bed with a ghost wearing someone else's face. She sat down on the motel bed, finally silent. Maybe finally understanding the gravity of what she'd done, not just to me, but to herself. I think he's running again, she whispered. But not from us. From them. I nodded, heart racing. And whoever left me that photo. They want him found. Or punished. Maybe both. Just then, my phone vibrated. A blocked number. I answered on instinct. A distorted voice crackled through. You don't know who I am, but you have something I want. He ruined my life. I've been tracking him for years. I swallowed. Who are you? The voice ignored the question. You want answers? You want to stop looking over your shoulder? Then meet me tonight. Alone. Bring the envelope. Leave the girl. The call ended. I looked up at Isla. You need to go back to your sisters. Now. She didn't argue. She just looked down, finally understanding this had gone way beyond betrayal. This wasn't just about broken hearts anymore. It was about people who disappear. I spent the rest of that day preparing for something I couldn't define. I wasn't packing a weapon or calling the police or even telling anyone where I was going. I was doing what I always do, being quiet, careful, overthinking every breath. Only this time, it wasn't about avoiding a fight with Isla. This time, it was about surviving a meeting with someone who had been tracking a con man for years and had finally decided I was worth contacting. The location came in a second message just before sunset. An abandoned parking garage on the edge of town. Classic. I expected that. What I didn't expect was the final line of the message. Bring the original photo. Don't make copies. We'll know. That sent a chill down my spine. I tucked the envelope under my jacket and drove out as dusk swallowed the sky. My fingers gripped the steering wheel so tightly, I had to remind myself to keep breathing. I replayed every moment that led to this. The kitchen confrontation, the false accusation threat, the motel breakdown, the stolen money, the vanished man. It all pointed to one thing. I had been standing on the edge of a much deeper story than I ever imagined. And someone was finally about to turn the page. When I arrived at the garage, it was empty except for one black SUV parked in the farthest corner, headlights off, engine idling. I parked on the opposite end and walked slowly toward it, heart punching my ribs like it wanted out. A man stepped out of the driver's seat as I approached. Mid-40s, thick beard, leather gloves. He didn't look dangerous. He looked done, like someone who'd been through fire and just wanted to see who lit the match. You're Melvin, he said. It wasn't a question. I nodded. You left the envelope. He motioned for me to follow him behind a concrete pillar. I've been chasing Cain for 6 years. You called him Tobias. I knew him as Nate. Before that, he was Darren. Every town, every woman, every scam. New name, same poison. I pulled out the envelope and handed him the photo. Who are you? He looked me dead in the eye. I'm Lamar. The name hit like a freight train. The one Tobias mentioned in those panicked emails. The one he feared. Lamar saw the recognition in my face and nodded slowly. He left me to rot in prison. Blamed it all on me. I had nothing to prove otherwise. So I sat, waited, watched, and when I got out, I started cleaning up his mess. I couldn't help myself. Why me? He took the photo from the envelope and held it under the pale parking light. Because you were the only one who documented everything. The emails, the transfers, the connections. You were too scared to confront him, so you recorded him instead. That made you useful. That made you a threat. I stepped back. I didn't do it to be a threat. I just didn't want to get destroyed. Lamar smiled faintly. Exactly. That's why you're still standing. He opened the trunk of his SUV and pulled out a manila folder. Inside is everything I have on him. Bank accounts, aliases, safe houses. He always vanishes when someone gets close. But this time, I think he slipped. I think he's still in state. You're going to help me confirm that. I stared at the folder like it was radioactive. Why would I help you? Because I can get your money back, he said. And because the woman who almost ruined you doesn't deserve to walk away thinking he was the only villain. I paused. What do you mean? Lamar leaned in. You think she was just a pawn? Isla knew what Kane was doing. Maybe not all of it, but enough. She just thought she'd be different. That he'd keep her. I felt my stomach turn. She said she didn't know. They all say that. I took the folder. I didn't know what it meant to get involved, not really. But I knew I couldn't just walk away from this. Not now. Not when the truth was finally cracking open. And if Tobias, or Kane, or Nate, or Darren was still out there, he needed to know something. The quiet husband? The guy too soft to fight back? He was done being quiet. The next 2 weeks were a blur of paperwork, late-night calls, and secret meetings. Lamar worked through channels I didn't ask too many questions about. Off-the-record friends in state offices, a connection in Nevada's fraud department, a hacker friend who owed him a favor. It was clear he wasn't just out for revenge anymore. He was building a case, one that had enough teeth to bite. With the folder he gave me, I added my documentation, screenshots of Isla's messages, the voice recording I'd secretly saved of Tobias talking about draining our accounts, and the bank wire confirmations. Turns out, those tiny instincts I used to beat myself up for, the paranoid note-taking, the silent suspicions, I wasn't crazy. I was prepared. Within days, a joint effort between a private investigator Lamar hired and a state financial crimes unit tracked Tobias, Gregory King, to a short-term rental 2 towns over. He'd changed his appearance again, shaved his beard, started going by Matthew. But one slip, using a card under one of his older shell companies, was all it took. He was arrested in the early hours of a Wednesday morning. Not for assault, not for murder, for fraud, dozens of counts. And finally, thanks to what Lamar and I gave them, with enough evidence to stick. That same day, I got a call from my bank. Between frozen transfers, asset recovery from Tobias's dummy company, and insurance that kicked in once criminal fraud was proven, I was reimbursed for nearly everything. Not just the $28,000 he stole, but penalties, interest, and damages. I got back more than I lost. And somehow, even better, I got my self-respect back too. As for Isla, she tried to reach out again. Sent a long, wordy text about how she was sorry and had been manipulated and just wanted a fresh start. She asked if we could talk. I didn't block her. I just replied, "You got your fresh start. Now so do I, goodbye." Then I deleted the thread. It didn't feel like closure. It felt like release. I moved out of that house the following month. Got a new apartment downtown, smaller, quieter, but mine. I changed jobs, too. Left IT support and joined a cybersecurity firm. Turns out, people actually appreciate someone who pays attention to details, documents everything, and thinks a few steps ahead. Lamar and I still talk, now and then. Strange, right? The man who was once a shadow and a scam turned out to be the one who pulled me out of it. He said something the last time we met over coffee that stuck with me. Some people only break once and stay broken. You broke, Melvin, but you got up. That makes you dangerous, in a good way. Now I walk a little taller. Not because I'm tougher, but because I know what I survived. And maybe the old version of me, the spineless, too nice guy Isla thought she could throw away, that version did die in that kitchen when she looked me in the eye and tried to erase me with a lie. But the man who stood back up, he's still standing.